It's Two on the Aisle with me, Charles Gross, and Leslie Hoban Blake. Tonight, reviews of Infinite Life, plus our interview with producer Eric Krebs and composer Julie Mandel. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Two on the Aisle. And hello again, Leslie.
Hi, Charlie.
How are you today?
Good, very good, thank you. First day, 75 degrees. It's going to be chilly tonight. I love it, I love it, yay!
And did you love the play that we are covering tonight, Infinite Life?
I really did like it, Charlie. I did have to think about it first, but it's Annie Baker, and I don't remember ever seeing anything by Annie Baker that I didn't have to think about to figure out whether I liked it or not. But I did. I liked it very much. And for those of you who are interested, it's at the Atlantic Theatre Company, and it's 5 women, 1 man, and it takes place at a, I don't know quite how to say it. It's a
well, it's kind of like a. I won't call it a hospital. I won't call it a spa, but they're undergoing treatment for cancer, and I'll call them innovative treatments, like. I think
maybe innovative, maybe charlatan. One doesn't know, but and that's part of the story too. But it's some of our favorite actors. Mary Louise Burke, who was of course the original Kimberly Akimbo before it was a musical. Maya Katzenbach, who runs the Pan Asian Theatre Company, who's been here a very long time. Christine Nelson, who's steals everything she's ever in when she's there, but not this time. Brenda Presley, Christina Kirk, and Pete Simpson. That's the guy. And that's all it is. It's the top of a garage, and
that's what it's supposed to be.
That's the top of a garage.
I thought it was a porch or something.
They mention it within it, maybe in the middle of the play somewhere. The guy says, "Well, otherwise you wouldn't be here at this kind of place on top of a garage."
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was either. But the set is the simplest thing possible. It's 6 or 7 of those folding chaise lounges. The nice ones with the wood and the, well, I mean, I was looking at them once upon a time when I had a place for them. So, and they come out and it's in real time and it's in slow time. So everything takes longer than it normally would. Everybody is very soft-spoken.
That made it a little hard to hear, and I was sitting in the front of the theater.
Well, we went, now we have to be fair, we went to a preview, which we don't usually do, but the holiday is coming up and it was all we could do to get in. So I'm not going to take it out on the actors because I think they'll probably all be up to speed or by the time that they open. And also it was a 2-show day, and 1 or 2 of the actors are, so I'd asked for a script. I'd hoped we could have gotten it. So I don't think I missed anything. If I missed a plot point, so be it.
The plot is they're sick, they're trying to get better. They lay down in the yard, they talk, and we learn about their lives, and it's actually a very interesting. I think it's like 130 minutes, something like that. Maybe a bit more, 145 minutes, I think. No intermission.
No intermission.
And it's, as you said, very simple, but we do enjoy it. And one of the characters who says the next day, a few hours later, so which is unusual, but it works.
It works. So you have to put yourself into her time clock. I'm usually someone who wants it faster. I want it shorter. I want it faster. Obviously, that's not going to happen here because that's a character. Time is a character in this play, which you don't always find. But these are people who are on the verge of death, some of them. Maybe not all of them, but some of them. And their illnesses range from cancer to all kinds of things. They're not all there for cancer. And part of it has to do with the sex drive in people and what happens as you get older and what happens when you can't get or be part of sex when you might want it and your body fails you, etc. And whether that's age or illness, that same thing happens. And the other part of it, of course,
well,
is...
at one point, the guy who's married offers, himself to one. He says, well, if you'd like a quickie, he said, well, I need 7 hours.
Well, that's not funny because her disease in particular was really, well, it's like when you go to the theater sometimes and people make jokes and guys put their legs together if somebody gets kneed in the groin, and this was, her disease was something that I went, oh, and my legs, I did the same thing, I clenched. But anyway, so, and
it reminded me a bit of a play called The Shadow Box, which also dealt with cancer
patients. You said that.
patients.
I don't remember seeing it. I know it was Michael Christopher, but I don't remember if I ever saw it. I think it might have been on television, but I don't remember it, so I won't try to say anything about it. the thing here is, I mean, there are going to be complaints about the slowness. There are going to be complaints. There always are with Annie Baker. And all of her plays are not like that, but she has several that are. I think it's brilliant that she brings us into a world and really you feel for an hour and 50 minutes or whatever it is, you really feel that you're there. And you are emotionally involved. They get your emotions going very quickly because we all have older parents or we all have illnesses ourselves.
And some of them are not all that old.
No.
You know, the main character, I think, would be in her
54, she said. You know, she doesn't look it, but
no,
that's
she
what
looks like
said.
she's about 10 years younger.
And, well, that's today's 50, you know.
There
50
you go.
is today. I mean, I looked at pictures of my grandmother at that age, and she looked 100, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to say, James MacDonald directed, and I was very taken with it. I was moved by it, and I would give it a very high score. I would give it I'll say 4.75. I've been using that because I'm just a little short of being perfect.
Okay.
But so good, so good. Just be prepared to go with it. Don't try to make it go faster. Don't try to, you know, take it for what it is.
Okay. I didn't quite enjoy it as much as you did, but I did have a good time, and I will give it 3.75. Well, tonight we have an interview with an off-Broadway producer and a former professor at my alma mater, Rutgers University, and at Baruch.
And Baruch, right.
And he's still going strong. So let's
He's
go.
an old friend.
Yes. Let's go to our interview with Eric Krebs.
I was at Rutgers 37 years. I founded the George Street Playhouse Regional Theater in New Brunswick, New Jersey, which is entering its 50th season this month. And I've been hanging around a long time.
Okay. And in the same area, 42nd Street.
Well, actually, I've been in 42nd Street and off Broadway for a long time, but I've done regional theater, I've done off Broadway downtown theater. It's just that you know me from Midtown.
Right.
Well, I first met you when you had the Douglas Fairbanks. You had several theaters along
Douglas
Theater Road.
Fairbanks and the John Houseman,
And
yes.
the John Houseman.
23 years from around 1978 to around 2002.
Well, I met you when you were doing the musical theater thing where all have all those shows.
NAMT, National Musical
Right.
Theater Network
Whatever it was. It was
New Plays Festival.
right, and it was an extraordinary thing that was being done.
Yes.
And it was not just your theaters, but other theaters
We
as well.
used the Houseman, the Fairbanks, we used the Houseman downstairs studio, we used an upstairs studio, and we actually used a restaurant that was between the two theaters. We had about 5 or 6 locations, all going at once for that festival. And they used to do the entire musical. Now they only do about 40 minutes at the festival.
It was brilliant. It was,
And
it was like being at Williamstown.
It's just kind of overwhelming.
But it was
Anyway.
like Williamstown or Louisville. It was that's the way that they would introduce things. And one or two of those plays went on from there. I know
Some have.
more than 1 or 2.
And we are still going on.
And you still are going on.
What was 42nd Street like in those days? I mean, I would walk between 8th and 9th, and I'd be the only one there.
Well, between Broadway and 8th was really the worst. Between 8th and 9th, there were a number of small 99-seat theaters that were known as the Maidman Theaters, and several of them were porno houses. My favorite image, before I really started at the Fairbanks Theater, was walking down 42nd Street, and in front of one of those 99-seat houses was a great, big, fat guy with his belly sticking out of his T-shirt on a little folding chair, and he was saying, "Come on in and see the girls." And I thought, no, thank you, I can find them myself. And I walked past. That was between 9th Avenue and Dyer Avenue, which is the exit from the Lincoln Tunnel. And then the Houseman and Fairbanks were on the next half of the block between Dyer and 10th Avenue.
Where the signature is now, and that.
Where the
block,
signature is actually exactly on the place where I sat in my office for 23 years.
Well, it was amazing. You were always very generous, not just with your time, like coming to us tonight, but I remember as part of the drama desk asking you for a space, and you gave it to us. We had a meeting and some other things going on at that point, and
I
you just
heard
gave us a downstairs
I heard
theater.
a very funny comment once. Somebody said, "You want free tickets? Pass Eric on his bicycle." Because I love to get people into theater. I love to fill up audiences. I've given, if you count them up, probably thousands of tickets to youngsters come various productions.
Well, speaking of which, at 555 Theater, which is or Theater 555,
Right.
You're now running a Muppet show, right?
Yeah, the new theater I have taken over, we've now called Theater 555. It used to be Signature and then Pearl. And I have a rental in there, which is the Sesame Street musical. They're doing extremely well. They're licensed officially. And you get to see all the puppets popping up from many different places.
Question that I love to ask producers.
Why do you produce?
Well, no. What do you do, or perhaps you should tell me what you don't do, because it might be shorter.
As a producer? Mm-hmm. I used to tell my students when I was teaching theater, the producer is sort of like the captain of the ship. You decide where the ship is going and who's going to do what job, and you bring on the various crew members, and you bring on all the sailors, and you put it all together, and then you stand back, and hopefully it all works. And when there's a problem, you try to step in and solve it. And you also have to find the money.
That's
Yeah,
the big
that
one.
too. Small,
That's the big
Or
one.
put it
small
up.
detail.
Or put it up.
Well, we were at Theater 555 just last night, whenever this goes
Right.
on, to celebrate the birthday.
100th birthday of the composer lyricist Julie Mandel.
A lovely lady whom we've also interviewed for this show.
How did that come about?
Oh, well, when I was still teaching, I've retired now, I was at Baruch College, and someone who taught music there became a good friend, Denise Pericelli. And she said, you know, I know this person out in Queens who's writing music and lyrics still in her late 90s. We should do something with her. Her stuff is wonderful. And I said, okay, what do you think we should do? Well, we should do a musical review. I said, how old is she? 98. I said, well, we should do a celebration for her 100th birthday. And we did this week.
And she's as sharp as a tack. She's
Quite
just
sharp.
A new show. A
Lovely
new song.
face, still works, writing, creating. And we did about 25 of her songs
they were
in a
wonderful.
musical review with great singers. So great fun.
Indeed, very well done. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of those, and this is one of the best.
Charge no tickets, charge no money for tickets, took in no money, paid a bunch of money, and had a great time.
It's possible.
That's how
Well,
I produce.
it was kind of your version of Woodstock.
That's my version of how Eric produces.
But is it possible that something like that could have a life?
We are having that discussion now. It was perfectly wonderful. In fact, we had some women in their 20s coming up afterwards and saying, that every word of that is how I feel all the time now. And Julie was writing it into her 50s, 60s, 70s. So yes, it's kind of timeless stuff. There's a wonderful number that you mentioned, the unplayed piano,
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
about an artist who is not creating and sort of waiting to create, and other numbers about women supporting their men but not getting the time, money, action support to be able to pursue their own art. And finally, in our review we did of Julie's work, the last third of it, she breaks out and says, wait a minute, I'm doing this for myself, damn it. And she does.
Still does. She's still active.
Still does.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's impressive.
When did her husband pass away?
Long ago, 35 or 40 years ago.
She's been on her own
Yep.
that long, yeah.
So I'm curious, you mentioned bicycle riding.
Yes.
How long have you been riding in the city, and what kind of bike do you ride?
I ride a $50 yard sale special. If it gets stolen, I'll go find another one out in the yard sales somewhere. And I've been riding for sure since at least 54 years.
Wow.
What I really love to do is pull up in front of a Broadway theater, chain it to a post right in front of the line that's waiting to go in, and feel that I've brought my limousine to a Broadway house.
I read an article about you in West 42 magazine, or W42 magazine, and you said that you actually rode by the Theater 555, which was in disrepair.
Yes, during COVID, it was locked up and empty. The last group there was the Upright Citizens Brigade. The rent was very high for any kind of off-Broadway group. And the theater was quite forlorn. So I got in touch with management. pitched them the idea that I could run the theater and make it success if they lowered the rent. We came to agreement, and now it's back revivified, which is fun.
When you were at Rutgers, I think you said you were there for 100 semesters?
I taught for 100 semesters, 37 years at Rutgers and 13
Wow.
at Baruch College.
Was there any piece of advice that you'd give your students if they wanted to go into the theater? Or
Yes,
about the
don't
theater?
go into theater.
Don't go into the theater.
Figure out how to make a living doing something else, and then do what you love in the theater after you've established your life and your ability to support yourself. Mm-hmm. Then you can go into theater.
Yeah.
I taught full-time, full professor for 50 years. That's how I supported myself, raised my family, got a pension plan, but I always produced at the same time.
Were there any shows in particular that you are especially fond of that just came together?
Electra on Broadway with Zoe Wanamaker.
I saw that.
I saw it at McCarter Theater in Princeton. Apparently about 30 producers had been out and none of them had jumped at it. This was in September 1999. I went and saw it, and I knew I was very interested because I didn't go to sleep. I sleep through a lot of things after severe sleep apnea for years, and I was totally awake for all 90 minutes, and I said, maybe this is movable. People said to me, you're going to move Greek tragedy onto Broadway in December? Because I moved it right away after that. I said, I don't know, I'm a little quixotic, let's try it. And brought it in and was actually recouped in 4 weeks.
What year was that?
99.
Can you still do that sort of thing?
Of course not.
Okay. Okay. What's coming up for you?
Old age,
Well, besides that.
decrepitude.
Julie Mandel just wrote a song that says age is nothing but a number.
Age is nothing but a number.
There you go.
What's coming up for me? I have a number of sort of passion projects. Not many people know this, but I've been a poet much of my life, and in fact, a couple of weeks from now on one of the nights we're having a poetry evening. I'll be one of 4 poets reading. I have developed and adapted and performed a one-man King Lear, which my students really responded to. They had no access to King Lear. Undergraduates who are going to, say, a Baruch College, no access to King Lear. So I did a show called Considering Lear, which I adapted into 90 minutes, do the whole thing, and while I'm performing it, I'm also giving commentary as I go along. I'd love to do that again.
When did you end up coming to New York?
When did I come to New York? I think the clearest answer would be when I started the George Street Playhouse in New Brunswick, New Jersey. I got involved in New York casting actors, rehearsing shows here, and decided to turn my attentions more to a New York theater world, and found the space where I was able to open the Douglas Fairbanks 199-seat theater, and a year later the 287-seat John Houseman Theater on West 42nd Street, which at that point was the end of the universe, and now is becoming quite a traveled corridor. So I kind of came to New York in answer to your question at that point.
Okay.
I have 5 garages that I rent, 1-car garages out in central New Jersey, all of them filled with theater stuff. 1/50th of which I'll ever use.
You mean you're thinking of using it actually in the theater?
Well, I only kept it to use it in the theater, but I
Yeah.
haven't ever had a use for it.
Yeah, I know.
By the way, I have something, if any of the people watching want one, I must be the only person who has a full-size stuffed water buffalo head in his garage. If you need a water buffalo head, please come talk to me.
A couple of weeks ago, that would have been the right time to tell me
I
about
did a
this.
show called Papa, based on Ernest Hemingway. We did a great set at the Fairbanks Theater, and as you probably remember, Hemingway considered himself a great hunter, and we had to have a full-scale water buffalo head, which 25 years later I still have in storage. And here's a wonderful story regarding the head. The actor was Len Cariou, who played Hemingway in that one-person show.
I saw it.
And all the heads were on the walls and so on. When Len Cariou, 4, 5, 6 years later, was at Kennedy Center doing The Birthday Party by Neil Simon, I brought the head down to Washington in my van because I was running a show there at the same time called It Ain't Nothing But the Blues.
Oh, okay.
So I went down to see that, but I brought the head with me. And after the intermission, before the end of the show, I installed the water buffalo head in Len Cariou's dressing room, looking right at the door that he would enter. And then I hid in the hallway as the curtain call went on and waited a moment, and then I heard bellowing down the hall, "Krebs!" And that's my story, and I'm sticking to
I
it.
love
All
that.
right.
We can't top the water buffalo.
I don't think so. The guy went after Sweeney Todd and he won. So.
I got nothing else to say.
And Eric, as you heard in our interview, he's still active, and he produced a show with a composer, 100-year-old woman by the name of Julie Mandel, and we were able to get a Zoom interview with her. And I'll tell you, I hope I'm as alert and with it as she is.
I would like to be that alert at maybe 90, and she's 100. She actually turned 100.
At 100 years
and
old.
she just wrote a new song, and she's amazing, and I can't wait for all of you to hear her. Julie Mandel.
I was curious about one of the songs in the show. It was called An Unplayed Piano. Could you tell us a little about that one?
Well, it's what I think, that pianos were meant to be played. And I've been in homes where there were pianos where nobody played them. And it prompted me to write that song.
Not much good is an unplayed piano, just some board standing around, dusty keys, wanting someone to press them, coax and caress them into a joyful sound.
What inspired you to become a songwriter? There are so few, even today, there are so few women songwriters.
I don't know of any, famous woman who wrote music and lyrics. I mean, I know Betty Comden wrote lyrics, and I think there were others that wrote music. Dorothy Fields wrote lyrics, you know. But I've always done both because I was, I know exactly when I was inspired by hearing Rhapsody in Blue. The day that George Gershwin died, they played it on the radio, and I just was blown away by that music. And they said that was by George Gershwin, who died today. And I just knew that that was what I wanted to do. And I started listening to all the Gershwin and Ira Gershwin songs, you know, and just went on from there loving that kind of music.
But I have a note here, though, that you wrote everything from pop music to jingles. We saw one of your jingles played last night, which was really cute. And then
Yes.
and then you also wrote classical music.
I started writing classical music and piano music because I became a member of the Long Island Composers Alliance, and they gave concerts. And that inspired me to write stuff that could be played at a concert. I mean, you know, there's a story about Rodgers and Hammerstein when they were always being asked, what comes first, the music or the lyrics? And their answer was the call from the producer.
You know,
Because that's what inspires writers, the chance to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
I write what I like. Somebody once accused me of being a self-indulgent writer, and I guess I am. I mean, I write something that I would like. That's the kind of
So nice when it's raining, no need to get sloppy. With so much to see, I'm sure it will be a nice change from shopping.
I know you worked for part of your career at the Brill Building. That building was infamous for songwriters.
Yes.
What was the atmosphere like when you were there?
Well, I didn't really work there. I mean, I just would make many trips to visit all the music publishers, trying to get them to listen to my songs and maybe publish them, And I was the only woman I ever met who was doing that. The only woman other women I saw in the building when I used to make the rounds with the secretaries that worked there. But I made friends with a lot of songwriters, but they were always males.
You mentioned looking for publishers. You actually were signed by an extremely prominent one who was also a fairly good composer in his right.
Yes, Frank Lesser.
Indeed.
Well, that was quite a bit later. But Frank's wife at that time interviewed me, and I played songs for her, and she liked them. And she immediately called him on the phone and said, I have somebody I want you here. And she took me into a taxi, and we went over to the hotel where he was working on Most Happy Fella. That was what he was writing at the moment. But she had me sit down and play for him. And I remember that he was a wonderful audience. I mean, if I played any song that had humor in it, he would laugh and respond. He was a really great audience. So I played songs for him, and then he signed me for a contract with his company.
We have a picture to show of your book that's going to come out soon. The book
Yes.
is an inch and a half thick. It's as big as most coffee table books, and it contains only 400 of your songs, so there must be something else to come.
Right, that's right. It is a big fat book.
Are you still writing?
Am I still writing?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Oh.
Of course.
So what have
Of
you
course.
written lately?
I just wrote a song recently called Age is Just a Number.
Well, that's very true. And in your case,
And you would certainly know.
in your case, that number is an unbelievable 100 years. And we are so appreciative that you came to talk to us today. And thank you so much for sharing your music last night. I hope we get a chance to see more of it. I hope that something happens with that, that particular concert that we saw, because it was just wonderful.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
And that is our show for this evening. And when you go to the theater, look for Leslie and me, us too.
On the aisle.
It's commercial.
Don't find new words to rhyme.
All originality is a crime, and imagination's not worth a dime.
But you're bound to be admired if you're truly uninspired.
If it sounds like 20 other songs that you can recall, it's commercial.
Commercial.
If it proves without a doubt you've got no talent at all, it's commercial.
Commercial. You'll do fine if you try. Write a song that you yourself would and buy.
And you'll live